The Russian army has cut off Ukraine's supply line in Pokrovsk. Thousands of soldiers running away. Good afternoon, dear friends. We are still with you in our daily format, analyzing the situation on the front. And you know today is an important day because it marks the first day of the official start of negotiations between Russia and the United States. These talks will take place in Saudi Arabia. Ukraine was not invited, nor was Europe for that matter. This is solely between Russia and the United States. Zelensky already took a stance yesterday, stating that he does not recognize these negotiations. Well, as if, his recognition is so crucial. It seems to me that no one really cares. And Lavrov, on the eve of these talks, said that Russia will not make any territorial concessions to Ukraine. That's where we stand at the moment. There is no information yet because the negotiations are still ongoing. Well, let's get started. Let's open the map. So the situation on the front is very dynamic. If at the beginning of February the advances were relatively modest compared to other months, with the standard for the Russian army being 12 to 13 square kilometers per day, they dropped to 6 to 7 square kilometers per day. But in the last 3 days, there has been some kind of explosion of activity, and there is an explanation for this. For example, from the area west of Kurakhove, this section here, the Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, AFR, transferred reserves to Pokrovsk. They assumed, that the rivers and the strongholds built along them would be able to hold back Russian troops without a large infantry presence. They couldn't. The front simply collapsed, and in Pokrovsk, well, yes, they managed to halt the advance of the Russian army and even launched a counterattack. But this counterattack did not yield any significant dividends. Here, they have already lost more than 40 square kilometers in just 3 days. But let's take things in order. And by the way, regarding Pokrovsk, yesterday a video appeared online showing a large number of AFU casualties, referred to as 200s, from the Pokrovsk area. The video, I must say, is quite gruesome and terrifying. It's clear that such content shouldn't be posted. Now let's turn to the front. We'll start with the south. Success is being recorded here, west of Vremevka. What's happening here? Look, 2 days ago, on February 16th, Russian troops launched an attack with a column consisting of 1 tank and 4 armored vehicles. The column calmly covered several kilometers, entered the village, and deployed a landing force of 21 assault infantry soldiers. On the very first day, the eastern part of the village was taken, and the AFU made rather feeble attempts to dislodge them. During the retreat, they managed to burn 1 pickup truck, but that was it. They failed to push back the Russian troops or halt further advances. As a result, yesterday on February 17th, the AFU fled the village. In just 1 day, this small village, admittedly not large, with an area of just 1 square kilometer, was taken. There have been cases where the AFU fought fiercely for such small settlements. Remember Sinkovka, for example. But not here. They simply ran away. As a result, Novooleksandrivka came under Russian control in a single day. Now the question is, what happens next? Next we move north, 3.5 kilometers along the road to Volnoy Pole. Here's the village, then a little less than 2 kilometers to Shevchenko, and after that, the front lines will be aligned. Shevchenko Berlatskoye Skudnoye, that's how it is. By the way, movement is also underway towards Berlatskoye from these positions, and behind them are fields. Fields, open space, without fortifications, stretching for 20 kilometers. This is something that Ukrainian analyst Miroshnikov lamented and cried about yesterday. Well, it's understandable why. When there are such open spaces without fortifications, the front is in trouble. Let's move on. By the way, it is in this Shevchenko that the lithium deposits are located, which Trump has been talking so much about lately. There are several settlements named Shevchenko in this direction, but it is in this one that the deposit is located. Returning to the topic, we discussed the advance of Russian troops south of Velikaya Novooleksandrivka. Now let's move further north. There are 2 directions here. The movement of the Russian army to the west, still towards Berlatskoye, and the movement is not very fast. Yesterday they advanced just over 1 kilometer. But the fiercest battles are currently taking place in the village of Severny, in Novocheretovotoye. Moreover, the armed forces of Ukraine are hastily transferring reserves here. Why? The answer is actually simple. The capture of Novooleksandrivka will secure a stable western flank for the advancing units from Novi Komar towards Oradnoye, and reaching Oradnoye, given the simultaneous advance from Andreyevka to Alexeyevka, will put the AFU garrison in Bogatyr on the brink of encirclement. But the situation there is already grim. I showed you yesterday how the AFU defense was breached for 8 kilometers. They eventually repelled that attack. But if the road is cut off, everything to the east, not just Bogatyr, but also Konstantinovka, will be in trouble. Translation: and reaching Oradnoye, given the simultaneous advance from Andreyevka to Alexeyevka, will put the garrison of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, AFU, in Bogatyr on the brink of encirclement. But the situation there is already grim. I showed you yesterday how the AFU defense was breached for 8 kilometers. They eventually repelled that attack. But if the road is cut off, everything to the east, not just Bogatyr, but also Konstantinovka, will be in trouble. All of this will be caught in a large cauldron. The AFU command understands this scenario and is trying to prevent it, which is why they are rushing to transfer reserves here, pulling them from other directions. So, in Novooleksandrivka, fierce counter-battles are currently underway. Although 40% of the village is already under Russian control, the turning point has not yet been reached. Now let's move further to the Kurakhove pocket. Although it's no longer a Kurakhove pocket, because quietly and unnoticed, Kurakhove is now in a fairly deep rear. At the moment, the fighting is already on the western outskirts of Ulakli, which is almost 10 kilometers from the western outskirts of Kurakhove. Just a few days ago, the battles were in Dakhnoye, which was only 2.5 kilometers from Kurakhove, but a powerful push by Russian troops after taking Dakhnoye immediately advanced 6 kilometers, significantly moving the line of contact away from the city. By the way, an interesting fact is that even Selidov, which the Russian army captured on October 29th, is now much closer to the front. If you go north from Selidov, the line of contact is only about 6 kilometers away. Now the line of contact is almost 10 kilometers away. And all of this, I repeat, became possible due to the breakthrough of Russian troops in the last 3 days. What's happening here now? Ulakli is pretty much decided. Yes, remnants of the AFU garrison are still trying to cling to the basements on the western outskirts of the village, but the main part of the garrison, realizing the danger of being encircled, has retreated to Konstantinovka, from where they can still escape. So, if not today, then tomorrow, the village will come under full Russian control, though it might have already happened by the time you're watching this video. As for the situation in Konstantinovka, the village is quite large, covering almost 2.5 square kilometers, and it's very well fortified. Therefore, taking it by storm and wiping out the AFU garrison, as happened in Ulakli, hasn't worked here. At the moment, fierce battles are ongoing, and the turning point, control over this section of the road, has not yet been reached. If we move further north, yesterday there was an activation in the Nadezhdinka-Kotlyarovka sector. Russian troops used armored vehicles, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, IFVs, BMPs, SUVs, and even, a bukhanka, a type of vehicle, in the attack. The goal here is clear. First, reach Kotlyarovka, and then from there, move toward the border with the Dnipropetrovsk region. The attack brought some success. There were even reports, which I saw, that they managed to reach the outskirts of the village, but I haven't received confirmation of this information yet. What is confirmed, however, is the advance from Nadezhdinka by 2.5 kilometers. Novopavlovsk direction as of 18 February 2025, situation on the Volchya River. Last evening, several information resources linked to one of the sides of the conflict reported a difficult situation for several AFU brigades in this area. According to their data, the position of these units is assessed as critical. Earlier, significant forces of one of the sides were encircled in the area between the settlements of Ulakli and Dakhnoye. According to available information, a large number of military personnel were killed in the fighting. It is reported that these were experienced fighters, whose loss could seriously impact the overall situation. Additionally, yesterday's events unfolded in the area of Ulakli, where some of the encircled units managed to break through. However, according to sources, they found themselves in another difficult situation, as the other side began an assault on this settlement. As a result of the fighting, the garrison was defeated, and not everyone survived. The command of one of the sides attempted to deploy reserve units into the battle, but according to sources, this only added to the confusion in troop management. This led to nighttime clashes in the Konstantinovka area, where both the reserves and the survivors from the battles in Ulakhli retreated. In the morning, the fighting in the Konstantinovka area resumed with renewed intensity. According to one side, their units are already fighting in the center of the village, and panic is observed among the opposing forces. Given the current situation, it might be advisable for one of the sides to retreat to new positions, to regroup and reorganize their troops. Also yesterday, units from one of the sides, taking advantage of the situation, began an offensive from Andreevka in the northern direction, and, according to their reports, achieved significant success. Overall, yesterday marked an important stage in the development of events on this section of the front. That's all for today's Frontline update. I'll say goodbye for now, wish you a good workday, and see you soon.